Are you going to get it? Are people going to give it to you? And that really is where we come to now in regard to what I mean by stock-taking exercise. And this is something that you as a project development team are going to need to consider. Is identifying the sources. We're going to be doing this as an exercise in a moment. Identifying the sources is relatively the easy part. What's more tricky is actually getting access to that data. So you really need to ascertain the availability of the data and information. Some of it's going to be easily available. It's just going to be, maybe even off the web. It may be from your own research papers, maybe from your own institutes. Some of it is potentially going to be sensitive and you're never going to get access to it. You need to assess the compatibility and comparability of data sets and information. And this is a real problem. This is a real problem in LMEs, but it's also a real problem in river systems as well. Is from different countries having different monitoring approaches means that it's almost impossible to compare data sets. And this is a real issue in the Black Sea. Black Sea struggled for over a year in trying to make sure the data was, at least in some way, comparable between countries. And they had real issues about getting data from governments. All about identifying where gaps are as well, because if you can find where the gaps are, at least you can say that in the TDA. And that is something that then can possibly be bridged in, or can be dealt with in the SAP. Analysing the quality and quantity, the quality of the data and information is important. Some of it's going to be quality assured, a lot of it isn't. And how verifiable is the data? Is it cited or peer reviewed? These are all things that you need to be considering. In a sense, I'm teaching grandmothers to suck eggs here because, do you know the expression? No. Yeah, okay. You already know much of this. This is what you do as scientists. So it's not that this is new to you. But it's something that this project and the TDA development team needs to consider. And also determine cost implications for learning, because there may be cost implications for actually getting data. I've already kind of covered this. Where you get access to it from project documents, project staff, you, country focal points, agency country representatives, the interministry committees. These are all sources of data for a project. And I think this is actually quite useful. This is some advice from people that have already been doing this over the last few years. Always consider the hierarchy of the data and information available. Ultimately what you want is going to be quality controlled, peer-reviewed information. That's the kind of the benchmark. But the chances are that's not what you're going to get. You might get some of that, but you're going to be gradually stepping down to the point where you are potentially going to be having to deal with data that is questionable. And it's how far are you willing to go down that path to be able to justify what is said in the TDA. Be creative and think laterally. If the answer to availability of data is always no, particularly to raw data, ask for analysed data or reports. So getting access to raw data might be tricky. Countries are often not so keen on giving raw data, but they are much more amenable to analysed data, particularly to reports. And there's a very good example of this in the Yellow Sea in the system project. The project manager there had been asking China for a long time for some data, oceanographic data. And the answer was always a kind of no. And eventually he thought, maybe I'm looking at this the wrong way. And so what he did was, he then asked them, could you just provide me with the GIS maps with the analysed data on it. So there's no data behind it, It's just the GIS maps in a PDF or a JPEG or whatever. And they were very happy to do that. And so he got the data to be able to put into the TDA, but not raw data. He got the finalised map, GIS map. So it's just thinking cleverly around this. It's all about developing a network of contacts. This is networking, because the data that you will know a certain amount of data, but you will have friends who also, or colleagues that have information and data. And it's about bringing all of that meta information together so that you have this network of data sources plotted out, mapped out. Don't be frustrated by lack of data. This isn't so much of an issue for you, but many regions are data poor, so think creatively around this. There are a whole range of other sources of data out there that can be accessed. Google, for example, has some fantastic data information. Google Oceans, I'm sure some of you have been using Google Oceans. There's lots of ways of looking for it that aren't traditional. I think that's the key here. So you really have to start thinking sort of outside the box with regard to this. And really manage your assumptions with regard to data. There's always this issue around perceived versus factually supported. And one source of information is from surveys asking people on the ground what they think the problems are. And that's perception based. And that's valuable, but it might not be factually supported. So you've got to weigh these two levels of information up. Okay, so any questions around that? Does that throw up anything? No? Okay. With that in mind then, I want you to, for the next 15 minutes, I'm going to put you into groups of 5 now, so everybody's going to have to get up and move. Okay, so the way we're going to do it is the old 1, 2, 3, 5, my Italian is so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so go into your groups. 1, 2, 3, 4,